Welcome to Black and Gold Digital Edition, a behind-the-scenes look at your Pittsburgh Steelers.
Hi, and welcome to Week 7 of our digital show. I'm Jay Pushkar alongside Ken Urbanski and Mike Fenner. And guys, it took about a month, but the Pittsburgh Steelers finally got themselves a victory. A huge upset over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They did it by winning 20-18. Kent, you and I were at the game last week, and just your overall thoughts, especially the way this defense played. I mean, there were so many guys on the injury list, other guys stepping up and coming up big.
Who would have thought that
we did.
Guys coming off
you
the
did.
I only based on a hunch, not from me sitting and watching hours and breaking down film. And it was just a hunch that they were going to bounce back, And even Friday, before the game, and then the injury reports were coming out and that they were going to be pulling guys off the practice squad to start in that secondary against the greatest quarterback of all time. I was like, man, I don't know. Maybe this could go the other way. But I don't know. Even when we were driving to the game, I said, I still have a hunch that they're going to bounce back. They're going to have a game.
I was trying to talk you out of it, too. I wasn't seeing it.
Yeah. And I don't know. It was just, I just felt like that they were going to bounce back, that Kenny Pickett was going to feed off the energy of playing in the home stadium, as a starter for the first time, and that they would have a good game. And that's how it panned out. And you got to be excited about that. It makes the drive home a lot better after a win.
No doubt about it. And speaking of Pickett, Mike, he had to leave the game because of a concussion. In comes Mitch Trubisky, and what a professional he has been through all of this, coming in as the free agent, being the #1 guy, then having that position taken away from him, then being thrusted back in. What a performance he had, especially to close out the game, converting on third downs and making that key run to bleed out the rest of the clock.
Yeah, that's what speaks to the volumes of why people wanted to see him be a captain or why they thought he was such a pro. And that's why you bring a guy in because of his professionalism and accepting his role and being ready when called upon. And he didn't know he was going to be as big a factor in this game necessarily as he ended up being, but he made a ton of plays, made enough plays, like you said, both through the air and then using his feet, using his legs late in the game. What a job to close it out there in the final drive after the defense gets that 2-point conversion stop and then they're able to bleed clock and stay on the field and finish the game in the victory formation. That's got to be a really cool moment for him after all that he's gone through the last couple of weeks.
Especially after that botched snap. Yeah. I thought, man, they're third and long. There's no way they're going to convert. And there were still about 3-4 minutes left on the clock.
You're right.
And yet he overcame that challenge, able to find Chase Claypool. And how about Claypool finally stepping up and really coming through when his offense needed it the most?
And for everyone out there that wants Chase traded for a 4th or a 5th round or a 6th round, forget it. Ain't happening, man. You're looking at a guy that's 6'5", 240 pounds. You can use him as a tight end, and this game shows what he's capable of if you get him the ball. Yeah, is he perfect? No wide receiver is. But I think he stepped up in the time that he was needed, and you don't trade away a guy like that you picked up in the 2nd round. He was almost, your 1st-round draft pick, because they didn't have a 1st-round draft pick that year. So you're not trading him. I think Trubisky came into that game and he played, like he wasn't looking over his shoulder, for Kenny Pickett. He was loose and he was.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah,
probably helped. Yeah.
And he was firing the ball downfield. He's like, he was taking chances. So that's what you have in Mitch Trubisky, and regardless of who starts in Miami, if Kenny gets through protocol, I'd feel good about Mitch playing in that game.
And Mike, regardless of who starts at quarterback, how can this offense finally get north of 20 points? It just seems like that's been the average right now, where they get to about 20, 23, and that's been it. How can they generate more points?
Yeah, I mean, that is the big question, because, again, you get the win, but not every week in the National Football League are you going to be able to win with just 20 points. It's just they got to put it together more consistently, but I don't think there's really any one answer, because if there was one, they'd have it already. They'd have it solved. But you just have to hope you can build off of what you've done. But they still need more in that running game. They still need more out of Najee Harris, or if it's Jalen Warren, or whoever, or if it's running more jet sweeps with some of these guys. They've got to get the running game.
That's a great point, because after the game, that's what we were hearing from the listeners that were calling into the local radio shows, all the jet sweeps, trying to get Chase Claypool on end arounds or Johnson on end arounns. I mean, give Matt Canada credit. He is trying to find some sort of running game, even if that's from the wide receiver.
Well, they're stacking the box, I mean, they're trying to make the Steelers one-dimensional, and most teams are successful at doing it until you start running the ball against those stacked 8-man fronts. Everyone's going to keep doing it, so it's going to be hard to do that. So how you do that is you take advantage in the middle and you open it up and you make linebackers have to stay back to cover those guys. And we'll see if that happens in Miami.
And they go up against the Dolphins for Sunday Night Football. And Ken, how do they keep this going? They've got a little bit of momentum going. Defense, they played great. Getting off the field because they didn't get off the field in Buffalo. And you got all these unknown guys stepping up to the challenge. And then now the offense is starting to kind of find themselves a little bit.
Well, I think you're going to get some guys back. I think you're going to have Minka back and guys like that are coming off protocol. The linebackers have to have another great game like they did against Tom Brady.
Miles Jack has had a really quiet yet very productive season.
Even Devin Bush, had that knockdown, that 2-point conversion. He played very well. So if they can keep doing that, then I think, and they got some pressure. They made Brady's life miserable. He wasn't Tom Brady-esque, because
he was barking at his line too.
They were putting the pressure on him, so they need to do that similar thing. Now you have Tua coming back, who is a little bit more mobile. So, now you have to contain the edges with a guy like that. So, how they go down there and win that is, I think you're going to have to feed off of that massive Steeler nation that's going to show up in Miami.
They do travel well.
They do travel well, especially down there, because Steeler faithful, they like to go to places where it's warm, so they're going to swarm that place
that's
down
a destination
there.
Type trip,
So you go down there, you take advantage of that. I've been in Miami, I've seen games like that, I've covered games there like that where whole sections of that stadium has been taken over by Steelers fans. So does that translate to wins? I don't know, but you feed off that energy, and I think whichever quarterback plays in that game, you can't hold back. You can't be conservative. You have to take chances.
Mike, what's your take?
I think they're catching Miami at a good time because this team had started 3-0 on the year, first time since 2018 for Miami, but then you have the Tua injury against Cincinnati that's well documented. I mean, we've talked about it ad nauseum across the country in terms of reevaluating the quarterback and overall concussion protocols. But now you've got him coming back for his first game back of action, we expect. Teddy Bridgewater also was injured. They've gone to Skylar Thompson in the last couple of weeks as a third-string quarterback, so you don't know how much Tua you're going to get. You don't know the quality of Tua you're going to get. So I think they're catching him at a pretty decent time for a road primetime game. It's probably not going to be the best version of the Dolphins or the 3-0 version of the Dolphins, but the one interesting topic was talking about going up against a lefty and trying to get him off his spots. And Cam Hayward had some interesting comments about that, just how you try to change up the rush or how you try to attack a left-handed quarterback, because it's just really not that common anymore in the league. He's kind of a rare guy between the mobility and the lefty. The big challenge for the defense. Miami's still second in the league in passing somehow in yardage, despite the fact they've rolled out 3 different guys playing the position, which I think is odd. A bevy of running backs, but yeah, I think you're right, Kent. I think creating the pressure like they did this past week against Tampa Bay up front is going to be the biggest key for the defense. And then you got to think that having Brian Flores in your back pocket and a guy like Minka Fitzpatrick who's got to be fired up to go back against his former team, both those guys, I'm sure, are really eager and anticipating that return trip to primetime.
And what you can't do is let Tyreek Hill beat you deep.
No doubt.
And he's notorious for doing that against Steeler coverage. So you can't allow those big splash plays with him right off the bat that makes the Steelers change a game plan.
He did it so many times last year in the 2 encounters that Pittsburgh had with Kansas City.
I don't want him seeing waving any pom-poms in Miami. Shut him down and let's be done.
Or waving at the secondary 30 yards away from them going into the end zone. One other thing to kind of keep in mind, this is going to be a Sunday night game. There's been so much controversy about home field advantage for Miami where the visiting sideline is exposed to the sunlight, the field turf is at 120 degrees, while in the shade for Miami, it's at like 85 or 90.
You're right.
I think this is going to help at least with the stamina because of the cold weather that we're experiencing here in the Great Lakes and the Northeast, that you go down south, maybe things balance out a little bit. Pittsburgh's got a fighter's chance, more so than like Buffalo or anybody.
And that's Buffalo's only loss, is playing in that miserable heat. You're right. Yeah.
So we'll see. Maybe Mother Nature has a little factor going into week number 7. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for Kent Urbanski and Mike Fenner. I'm Jay Pushkar. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for watching. Join us again next week for Black and Gold Digital Edition.